Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here, and I would like to welcome you to this episode of Taking Care of Your Temple podcast. I have an awesome guest here with me today. I will introduce her in just a moment. And let me tell you just a few things about this, as I always do. The objective of this podcast is to try to help women connect with God regularly, and doing that by using His grace, power, strength, might, all the things to improve physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being. There are four principles that I recommend for doing this. There's probably other things you could do as well. The first one is to keep your focus on God. This sounds so obvious, so basic, and yet it can be so difficult. Chief, do you have an issue with that? I mean, is that difficult for you to do, or are you easy with it? Oh, wait, I can't hear
Yeah,
you. Let me,
it's definitely, can you hear
there
me?
you go. Yes,
All
now.
right. Yeah, it can definitely be challenging sometimes, but then he always sends that little reminder that he's in charge. So, yes, ma'am.
Yes, yes, he does. Those little zingers that we get, and you're like, oh, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
right.
right.
Yes. So another principle is to acknowledge that we are not enough on our own. We are not strong enough, smart enough, capable enough, good looking enough, rich enough, anything enough on our own. And I've said this before, this used to be a lot harder when I was younger. Now that I'm older, I can admit this really freely. I need lots of help. I cannot do this by myself. And I think that we kind of learned that through experience, unfortunately. Third thing to remember is that it is about progress, not perfection. I think as women, we tend to be very hard on ourselves and think that we have to do everything perfectly, and then we beat ourselves up when we don't. And God, fortunately, does not expect us to be perfect, thank goodness. And then the last thing is to work on consciously changing our thoughts. Y'all, if you are giving yourselves a lot of negative, toxic messages, you are going to be having a lot of negative, toxic thoughts. I mean, that's just how that works. And you're going to feel negative and defeated and depressed or anxious. You need to be aware of what you're telling yourself and then work on changing those if necessary. So I have a verse for this podcast. It is 1 Corinthians 3:16. I think it's very appropriate. Do you not know that you are God's temple and that God's spirit dwells in you? And I love that. All right, let me say a quick prayer before we get going. Lord, I just want to thank you so much for letting me do this episode. Thank you that Chief Victorian is with me. And I just ask that the things that we say and talk about today will be really helpful to the people listening. Amen.
Amen.
Okay, ladies, I am so excited to introduce Chief Sheryl Victorian, and she is a native Texan. She is the police chief here in Waco. And I love that. She's been chief since March 15th, 2021. And before that, she was with the Houston PD for 28 years. She retired from there, and she was an assistant chief of the Patrol Region 2 Command. So she was responsible for several areas there. And her law enforcement experience included assignments with major offenders, homicides, special victims, internal affairs. This sounds like a TV show. Training and South Central and Southeast police divisions. She's earned a lot of awards and commendations for her service and dedication. She was recognized, I thought this was cool, as the 100 Club of Houston's Rookie Officer of the Year in 1995. So you were a rookie. You were just starting that year?
Yeah, that was the year after my first full year, which is that rookie year. So after you get off probation. So yes,
Okay.
it
So
was
you were
for
real.
the work I did in 1994. So yes.
I think that's excellent.
Mhm.
She holds a Bachelor of Science in Administration of Justice from Texas Southern University, a Master of Science degree in Criminal Justice from the University of Houston downtown, and a Doctor of Philosophy degree in Administration of Justice from Texas Southern University. So you are a chief and you are a PhD.
Yes, ma'am.
You are very accomplished.
Oh, thank you. It's a lot of hard work.
You also are a graduate of the Federal Bureau of Investigation's National Academy, session number 267. Gosh, a whole bunch of stuff. I'm not going to read all of this because you have just done so much. So in her spare time, I love this. You are a playwright. Have you written very many plays? Have they been performed? I'm just curious.
No, I have, but since I started promoting, probably from the rank of lieutenant, I haven't really written anything. But I'm a Christian playwright. I wrote a play called Wisdom of God, The Wisdom of God's Women that we performed at our church retreat in the late 2000, probably 7 and 8. I wrote our Christmas plays, our Easter plays.
I'm
Yeah,
so impressed.
I did. So I haven't really written much since I started promoting. In my time, it's been filled up, but it's still a passion of mine, and hopefully I can get back to it one day.
At one point, and that was going to be my next question. When the heck do you have time to do that? But
I had it.
yeah,
Now
I
it's a
understand.
struggle.
Yeah, and you can get it back again. I mean,
Yes.
it can happen.
Yes.
She also enjoys traveling, mentoring, teaching, and spending time with her family. Now, you don't have family here in Waco, correct? Your family is like in the Houston area. Is that right?
All of my family is in Houston. Yes, it's just me and my little dog.
Ah, well, but Houston is like what, a 2.5 hour drive?
It's about 3 hours from my doorstep to my sister's doorstep, who lives just south of Houston. So yeah,
Okay, that's not too bad. Oh,
easy
so you
ride.
have to drive all the way through Houston to get to her house.
Yes, I do.
Yeah. I remember Houston when my late husband was alive. He went to dental school there in the medical center. So I lived in Houston for like 5 or 6 years, very familiar with
Yes.
it. And the traffic was a nightmare back like 30 years ago. I can only imagine.
And it's still a nightmare. Thank God for Beltway 8. But when I go home, I plan my trip strategically so that I am not in the rush hour traffic.
Oh,
So it's
yeah,
not
no,
as much traffic, but it's still traffic.
there's always traffic in Houston. I mean,
Yes, ma'am.
honestly, that's one of the reasons I love Galveston, that I don't go that much because you have to drive all the way through Houston and then all the way back to get there. Unless I guess you go all the way around, which would probably add a lot of time. Okay. All right, let's get back to you. Tell us a little bit about the family that you grew up in, please.
So I have two older sisters and a younger brother. So there's three girls and a boy. My mom and dad were, we had both our parents and until I was 9, and I lost my dad, who
Oh,
had a massive heart attack.
oh,
He
sorry.
had his own business. Okay, before there was tile and granite, there used to be Formica
I
countertops,
remember
and
Formica.
he
Yeah,
had his
I
own
remember that.
business installing Formica countertops in new homes. And so he was really successful at it, but ended up, unfortunately, at 42 years old, had a massive heart attack and passed away. Um, and I grew up in a house where our only options were college or the military. So my mom didn't play, and we were, I think, a healthy fear. We had a healthy fear of her. All you had to do with us in school was say you were going to call our mom, and we'd go, "Oh no, don't call her," right?
It's
And
okay.
that
We're
would get us to
good.
straighten up, right? And so I yeah, it was my family and I are still really close. I lost my mom in 2020,
Oh,
just before the year before I came here, and I have an awesome story about that too, how God will hold it together until you get it together.
yes, yes.
Uh,
Oh, I like that.
and but yeah, but my siblings and I are still really very close, and so they come here frequently, and
Good.
to get away from the big city, and yeah, it's been fantastic. But they are
Yeah.
fantastic.
Well, you mentioned military, or what was the other thing you said? The other option?
College,
College. Okay.
college.
Was there any police, in your background?
No, we didn't have any, there were no immediate family members or aunts or uncles that were in policing. I had a great uncle, who was like a reserve constable or something in the country.
Okay.
Um, but that's as close as it was. No other law enforcement or police professionals in our family.
Well, how did you get into it then? I mean, is that something you always wanted to do, or did something happen?
So initially, I was afraid of police officers growing up, and it wasn't because my family had had any negative interaction with the police. I just think maybe what somebody may have, that statement that I really hate to hear when I'm out in public in uniform, may have said the police officer's going to put you in jail, right? And so my mom would take us to a local grocery store, and if it was just me and her, she'd try to get me to shake the hand of this constable that worked there, and I would fall out crying, embarrassing her because I was too afraid. I did not want to shake his hand.
Yeah.
And then I had a neighbor. We'd gone out of town one weekend, and we came back, and I had a little mischievous neighbor who was a little older than I, who said that the Houston Police Department's helicopter, landed on our street and was looking for me. and asked if said that they were looking for Sheryl and asked if she was a Taurus. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's me now. I was a kid, so I didn't know the
Yeah.
police didn't ask for your sign. So man, for a couple of years, my friends and I, when we were playing outside, because the Houston Police Department's helicopter would fly directly over my mom's house. And
Mm,
so every 2 hours or so, we'd hear those blades and we'd start running, right,
yeah.
hiding.
Yeah.
So because the police was looking for me, and they were not looking for me.
Yeah.
Um, and then when I turned 9, like I said, my father passed away. We escorted him. The police department escorted us out of the city because we buried him and had his services actually in the country. So, but the funeral home was in Houston. And those officers were very compassionate, very empathetic as my family and I, exit the funeral home. And then I just kind of focused on them as they led us out of Harris County and just saw the respect that they got, because back then when people were being escorted in funerals, people moved over to the side of the road,
Yeah.
right? And I still see it every now and then,
Yeah.
right? But I watched that and I was fascinated about that and just trying to, I guess, take my 9-year-old mind off of really what was happening. And yeah, after that, my perception began to change. And then at 15, Miami Vice came out, and I was a big fan of Beverly Hills Cops. And I said I wanted to work undercover. So at 15 and a sophomore in high school, I knew exactly what I wanted to do and the path that I had to take to get there. So,
Cool. How did
yes.
your family react when you went into this field? Because that was not a traditional field for your family, apparently.
No, no. When I made that final decision and told my mom that I was applying to be a Houston police officer, it broke her heart. She was fearful. She was like, oh
Uh,
my God, you're going to be dealing with bad guys and you might get hurt and die. So she was concerned, right? But she supported me. And after I graduated and things started happening in my career, she was my number one fan until she passed
oh,
away. So,
that's good.
yeah. Yeah, but everybody was a little apprehensive at first. But again, I came from a family of faith, and so I'm sure there was a lot of prayer,
Yeah,
in those decisions to support me, and yeah, so
cool. I did some research for this episode, and it said that what I found is that in 2021, 14.2% of police force were female and 85.5% were male. Why do you think there's such a discrepancy? That's a lot.
so so were you looking at Waco PD's numbers, or
No, no,
were you,
no. This was
because
just national, US
nationally?
national.
Because nationally, now it's just under 13%. And
It's gone down.
yeah, and so we always talk about we want to make sure that our police departments are representative of our cities. But
Yeah,
typically when we make those comments, we're talking about race and ethnicity, right? However, we had not looked at this startling statistic for so long, right? Because women make up about 49% of all of our communities. So
right.
we need to see what we're doing. So there are many reasons that research has, because there's an organization now called 30 by 30, right? The 30 by 30 initiative. And the idea is to have 30% female recruits in police academies by the year 2030.
2030.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because, there are some ladies who recognize this and recognize some of the issues that females were having in the field. And one of those issues is balancing, wanting to become a mother, shift work,
Right.
right? Sometimes our police departments are not as accommodating to new mothers. And then, of course, the physical aspect of the job and the way we present ourselves when we're recruiting with SWAT tactics, right? And really that's just a small portion of what we do. So are we really putting out material that recruit women? So we're looking at all of that right now. But yeah, those are just some of the reasons why women don't decide to come into the industry. And then of course, it really wasn't acceptable 60s, 70s. So those ladies that came before me during 80s during that time were real trailblazers and kind of
Yeah.
set the path, right, for me to be where I am. And the women, when they started off in this profession were wearing skirts, and they could only deal with the women in the juveniles, right?
Oh,
So we have grown significantly in, I guess, expanding um, our perceptions of women in the field, but we have to do a much better job at recruiting, retention, and making sure that we're promoting women in our profession.
I have I guess he's a nephew-in-law. He's married to my niece in Florida, and he's a police officer and has done undercover work. And it just concerns me because I feel like the atmosphere, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but my perception is working in that type of environment, it's a very negative environment. He's seen a lot of bad things. And I just feel like that kind of has to affect your emotional and mental well-being. Yes, no.
I worked undercover for 11 and a half years. And
Wow,
so I guess it really depends on the type of investigations that you are
that's
working.
true. Yeah,
I didn't work narcotics investigations. I didn't work vice investigations. In major offenders, we did credit card fraud. We did insurance fraud, tampering with a government document. So they were not really the violent crimes that would
right.
really linger with you, right? Um, have I had some scary situations because I bought and sold guns to people who should not have been in possessions of weapons? Have we run search warrants and arrest warrants that were pretty scary? Absolutely. But that's just the nature of the job, right? But I don't know. Some of my best times as a police officer were when I worked undercover in major
Really?
offenders. Yes,
Okay.
ma'am. Absolutely.
Cool. Well, one of the things that I know, I was a family therapist for like 28 years, and women tend to be better negotiators than men overall because we don't get as confrontational. We tend to stay calmer. Where men can kind of come in from a more, I'm going to get you type of thing. Are there many women in the negotiating, aspect of it? Because I know y'all do some of that as well.
We have a negotiation team.
Right.
But when we're talking about research, because there's been a lot of research done on women in policing, and you're right, and we are better, not just negotiators, but better communicators, and that's
Yeah.
research. So I don't want the gentleman out there to go, gee, Victoria, no, that's what the research says, right? Because of those reasons, we don't go in with the testosterone and on the defense,
Exactly.
right? And I have a
Yeah.
perfect example of that when I was a younger police officer. Um, I never really ran into any issues with people saying, oh, you're a female and you don't belong in this profession. But I did have an occasion where guys thought they were taking care of me because I was a female, right? In one instance, when I was a rookie police officer, I had to ride with a male partner or a partner. And it just happened to be male. And we had gone to a domestic violence, a domestic disturbance. And it was February, end of January, beginning of February, and it was cold. And he was like, "Hey, I got it. I've been here before. You can stay in the car." And initially, as a young police officer and him being a veteran, I didn't really know how to take that. But then I thought to myself, most police officers are killed in the line of duty doing family domestic violence
Yes.
incidents.
Yes.
And so I was like, how is this going to look with me still sitting in the car? I said, and then I want to learn. So no, I'm getting out. But by then he had made it up to the door or up to the incident. And I came on in, and when I came in, I was in the middle of it, or they were in the middle of an argument. And the suspect that in this investigation, now my partner, he was about 6'5", 6'6", and the suspect may have been about my height, but they were cursing each other, right? And so when the suspect saw me, every time he used a cuss word, he would say, "I'm sorry, ma'am," and then he'd go back to my partner. And after about the third, "I'm sorry, ma'am," I just kind of nudged my partner out of the way,
Uh,
and then I began handling the situation, right? I
yeah.
don't know if this young man was taught you don't curse in front of women or you don't curse women. I don't know. But, we were de-escalating before it became a term, and
Exactly.
he recognized that, and I never had to been asked to stay in the car again.
There we go. Yeah, because I think we do that naturally. We're just not as confrontive. We
Right.
don't get our back up as easily. And so if we're not confrontational, then it kind of helps them to calm down as well.
Exactly. Yes, it does.
I love that. So, what drew you to Waco after being in Houston for 28 years? Were you ready for a change, or was there something other than the fact that there was a chief of police job available? Was that just it, or were there other things that you liked?
I had only been to Waco one time,
Oh, okay.
before I started this process, right? And I came down in 2019, because I was asked to sit on a committee for the Texas Police Chiefs Association. It was a women's leadership, executive leadership committee with the Texas Police Chiefs. And, this was central. And so everybody on the committee met here at the
Here,
police
yeah.
tower. Little did I know a couple of years later that I would be applying for this job and coming here because I loved Houston. I loved being an assistant chief with the Houston Police Department. I never thought I'd leave the Houston Police Department. Never thought I'd leave the city of Houston.
Hmm.
But somebody saw something in me that I didn't see in myself and called me and told me about the position.
Oh,
And it was actually the former president of our police union in Houston. And someone had called him and was like, hey, I guess this is what we're looking for, whatever. And he called and he was like, Chief, we're not trying to get rid of you, but somebody just called about a police shop in Waco. And the work that you're doing sounds like the person that they're looking for. And so I
mm,
told them about you and they asked me if that I would ask you to apply. And I was like, oh, that's sweet. You really thinks I can be a police chief, right? And I didn't really consider it because I was thinking to myself, why is he calling me, telling me about this, right? And he asked the question, have you thought about being chief yet? And I was like, yeah, I don't know, maybe in the future, but not now. And he was like, well, if you think about it, would you ever leave Houston? And I was like, no, my family is here. Why would I leave Houston? Right. And so he was like, okay, well, it sounds like a good opportunity and the rest is up to you. And I'm a person of faith. So for about 2 hours after that phone call, I just felt the Holy Spirit gently nudge to say, go look, just go look, just go look. Right. And I literally said out loud, okay, I'll go look.
yeah.
I'll go
Fine,
look.
fine. Yeah,
And yeah, right. Yeah, you got it. You're not gonna let me sleep.
yeah,
So I went and looked in every bullet point. I was like, I am doing it. I can do that. Right. And a couple hours later, I went home, got my sisters on the phone, and they asked the sister questions. How far is Waco? How much are they paying?
yeah,
Can we get to you anywhere? I was like, yeah, and one of them said the brightest thing in the midst of our conversation. She was like, let's just pray about it and let's go from there. And that's what we did. And that Monday I was at peace. I submitted my resume and my cover letter, and that was it. I was like, Lord, if it's your will, I want it. If it's not, I don't want to be there.
yeah,
Right. And I was just at peace. And so that's how I got here. It wasn't something I sought out. It
yeah.
wasn't me wanting to be a chief at the moment. It's because somebody else saw something in me and yeah, and pointed me in this direction, and it just worked out.
And sometimes those times when we are not looking for a particular thing at all, and God just kind of drops a signpost in our lap, go this way, those can be the most rewarding, even though you're like, wait, what?
Yes,
I wasn't thinking about this.
yes, not at all. And what's so funny when I told you I had a little testimony about God holding it together until you get it together. So in 2020, the city of Waco held a selection process for chief. And they had narrowed it down to like 5 candidates and decided not to go with any of those candidates and decided to start the process again later on in 2020. And so I think back to myself because I didn't know about the process then. I didn't apply for the process then. But I think about it, I'm like, had that position came out when it did, and whether it was late 2019 or January 2020, I had just lost my mom. I had just gone through a divorce. I was not about to leave Houston. I wouldn't have wanted to leave my family. And so I didn't even know about it, like I said. And then who knew that 10 months later that I would be ready. And I tell people all the time, I say, God held it together
Yes,
until I got it together. And he was
yes,
like,
I
no,
love
this is
that.
hers. Yeah.
And
And
it's
so
so
I
true.
truly believe that. Yeah, I truly
Yeah,
believe that this was supposed to be for me. And, Waco had to go through a process for a minute, but,
yeah.
yeah, I wasn't ready. So but when I decided to take it, I was ready. I've been all in ever since. Matter of fact, I celebrate 3 years on March the 15th.
Really?
Being here. Yeah, and so every day is exciting, and I have not one day on my way into work as I'm praying, thinking, God, what did I do? I prayed if it was His will, and it was His will, and He has been faithful. So,
And when we are obedient to where he's leading us, even if it's not what we had thought or planned,
right.
it's just so rewarding.
It is. It is very rewarding, and so much so that I had to ask myself, Lord, was I not praying and calling your will all my life? Because now I see it. I'm like, that's what I was praying that whole time through that process. God, if it's your will, because I know if it's your will, you got me, right? If it's not, I don't want to be doing this in my own strength, which I
Yeah.
can't do. And it has literally been so rewarding, and He has just shown Himself faithful in every area. So,
And I think a part of that, Chief, is that you literally were asking him, yes, I would like that if it's what you want me to have.
if it's
If it's
what you want to
not,
have,
then no. And I have really learned to pray, Lord, this is what I would like. Because you say, ask whatever you want. I'm
yeah.
asking for this. But if this is not what you want me to have, then change my desires. I don't even want to want it anymore.
Do that. That is my prayer. If
Yeah,
my Lord, let my desires line up with your will. I do not want to
exactly.
step outside of your will.
I
So,
don't want to waste
yeah,
time
yeah,
wanting something that I'm not even supposed to have.
not
And there
mine.
have been times when he has done that. I've wanted something,
Yes,
and after a few days, I don't want it anymore. And I'm like, okay, well, good.
I'm good, huh? Yeah, there's a few times that I've went in the other direction too. Okay, I want, and then go after it and go, okay, you just delayed your blessing because this wasn't God's will. This is what Cheryl wanted, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But you grow and you mature, and so, yeah.
Thank goodness we do. So, other than size, what would you say are some of the differences that you've seen between working in Houston and working in Waco?
I would say, you said other than size, but size really does matter because the
Sure.
city is more intimate. The department is more intimate. Um, I can build stronger partnerships and relationships, lasting relationships in the community. We use our community a lot to help us legitimize our profession, and those partnerships matter and have to be built on trust. And trust requires us to be engaging,
Yeah,
right? And it's just hard to engage with a city that's 2 point something million,
mm,
right? And with
yeah,
so many businesses and stakeholders and partners. So it's been rather rewarding for me as chief to be in this more intimate setting, in a more intimate department, where, I can see the fruits of our labor. So
yeah.
that's been amazing. People are much nicer here. Traffic is a lot better. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, and so yeah, they're just it's a beautiful, relaxing place. I was just bragging to my sisters a couple of weekends ago. I was actually in Houston that weekend, came home that Sunday, and was sitting on my patio, and I could hear the crickets and I could see the star. I mean, it was just absolutely beautiful. And I was like, it was good for me to get back to this. I love coming home to visit, but this is a pretty amazing place.
Yeah. Well, we are very happy to have you, by the way.
You.
So, as police, as a female police chief, you are in the minority. There's no question. Again, my research said that 8.3% of all chiefs of police are women, 91.7 are men. Do you feel like being a female in this position is an advantage or a disadvantage or just kind of neutral for you?
Um, I I I think I'm pretty neutral.
Okay.
Neutral. Because again, I have had a great career. There were ladies that came before me that kind of set the path. And I think that I earned the credibility throughout my career as I promoted through the ranks, to earn this position as chief of police. And then my background is very varied in policing. I can tell you that imposter syndrome though is real. So initially I would sit around some tables and sometimes feel like, man, do I really belong here? And then
Sure.
I would always get that thing, that that note in my spirit or that to say, yeah, you do. You
A
worked hard to get here
confirmation.
and I have prepared, yeah,
Yeah.
prepared you to be here. So, but yeah, I'm neutral about that. I see myself though, being able to connect
Yes.
easier though than men. And so let me tell you, when I was going through the process, I had someone to tell me, you're too friendly, you're too nice. And I'm like, well, you know what? If friendly and nice is not what Waco wants, then I'm not the police chief for the city of Waco, because I am not going to change who I am
Yeah.
in order to be chief. And I know how to hold people accountable. I know how to be firm when I need to be firm, but I have so much to be thankful and happy for, then
And why
you
not
know,
be happy
be
and
me.
thankful?
I'm gonna be me. So yeah,
I get
yes, ma'am.
that. Um, the statistics show that police officers, understandably, report higher rates of mental health issues such as depression, anxiety, PTSD than the general population. And that obviously makes sense with their job issues. Do many of police departments and does Waco Police Department, do y'all have programs to help them deal with these issues?
Yes, ma'am. We have a peer support unit in the state of Texas. Everybody lately has been truly focusing on mental health with the increase in police officer suicides and
Yes.
the thing, it has been so taboo for so long that you not tell anybody
Right.
how you're feeling or that you're experiencing trauma because it used to be a sign of weakness and
Yep.
and so we had to remove that stigma. We're trying to remove that
Yeah.
stigma and saying it's okay to not be okay. We see stuff daily, weekly that most people don't see in a year
Yeah.
and go from call to call to call. And then sometimes the very thing that we're responding to and are trying to handle for people are the very things that may be going on in our own homes,
Of
right?
course.
And
Yeah.
so that's just a lot to deal with. So we have peer support groups and we have a
Good.
peer support unit inside of our organization, but there are also Texas resources, if any event somebody feel like they don't want to call anybody that will know them.
Right.
We do have resources in the state of Texas through the Texas Police Chiefs Association and Carew Police Institute where our officers can call and get help and be provided resources they need to address any mental health issues they may have.
Good. Good. Well, that kind of leads me into my next question. I know that yours is a high stress job. What do you do to help yourself deal with stress?
So, I love to get massages. I do.
Oh,
Yes, I do. And I'm an introvert. So, people don't realize that, they see me out and about and they think, but and I learned when I learned what being an introvert truly meant. I was like, "Yep, that's me." I need to be by myself sometimes to get my energy back. So on the weekend, if I have something scheduled on Saturday, then on Sunday I need my day for myself, right? So,
yep,
and I'm good about. I had to learn how to carve out time for myself,
yep,
even on my calendar each and every day. Most Mondays I'm not gonna schedule any meetings just to play catch up and get my mind ready for the week, Wednesday afternoons. I mean, I have to be intentional about scheduling time for myself. And I've learned to go home and sit in my big chair and put my feet up too and turn on the
good.
TV, even if I'm watching the same thing over and over. I enjoy reading, I enjoy traveling and just spending time with my family.
Yep.
And yeah, so
And
that,
that's so important that we do that. You're talking about setting boundaries in your
yes.
life so that you can have these times carved out. And if we don't do that, I mean, your job can just eat you alive because there's
Yes, ma'am.
always going to be more that you could be doing. And at some point,
Yes.
you have to say, I'm done for the day. It'll be here tomorrow.
Exactly. And you're exactly right. When I first got here, man, my calendar was full. And somebody told me, I think it was my boss, he said, you don't run yourself ragged, right? And then one of my classmates from the National Academy, he was like, look, carve out lunch every day. Whether you eat lunch or not, carve
Yeah,
out that hour for yourself,
good.
right? And so that's what I started doing, and it's really been helpful. And if something needs to go in any space that I've blocked on my calendar, my assistant and I have a rule. She's gonna come and say, Chief, is it okay for me to schedule this, or do you want to do this at this time?
Good.
Because that's important. And then I don't care. I feel like, you know what, if I got here at 7:30 in the morning, I could probably get a lot of stuff done before people come into the office. But what I also realize is that I'm still not going to leave here till 5:36 or 7:00.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I was like, I'm not going to do that to myself.
Good for
I'm just not
you.
going to do it. So,
Good for you. Well, I saw a video recently. It was on YouTube. You were addressing the fact that Waco has had 3 murders so far this year and that that's unusual. And I just felt like you did such a good job of addressing that and reassuring people. And I feel like you're kind of one of the faces of Waco. I mean, that's just kind of goes with the job description. How do you feel about that? And are you okay with that?
I am okay with that. I think that as the police chief, when we're talking about public safety and wanting people to know that our city is safe, that when we have messages that need to go out like that, that it should come from me, right? And unlike Houston, as an assistant chief for 3.5 years, I can be out and about and nobody knows who I am.
Right.
But here in this, I can go grocery shopping and run into people, right? People recognize me if I'm going to pick up lunch or dinner, and it's okay. And I'll stop and talk, and because it's just so important. Again, building that relationship, and I have a philosophy of relational policing where it's important for me to be able to engage with people. So, I I love it. I don't mind it at all. I think that as the police chief, it is my responsibility to make sure that I am seen and that I am engaged, and that goes a long way, not just with the community, but also with our team and our officers to demonstrate, and as leadership or in leadership, that this is what is expected, right? So yeah, I don't mind being one of the faces of Waco. So
Good, because you are easily recognizable. I mean, there are several people in the Waco area that if I see them on the street, I'm like, oh, I know who that is. You're one of them. So
yes.
yeah, I get that. So a couple more questions. As chief of police, or just as a police officer in general, you are not always exposed to the best in people. I mean, that's just part of the job. Do you find that affects you negatively, or do you have to really struggle to keep positivity going? I mean, how do you balance all of that?
As I told you before, I'm a person of faith,
Right.
and it requires initially when you hear stuff and you see stuff, man, it breaks your heart, right?
Yes. Yeah.
But I think being a person of faith and praying and surrounding myself with individuals who are praying people, are positive people, are people that I can go and vent to if I'm feeling frustrated or concerned, is very, very helpful. It doesn't leave me with a negative um, view or perception of society. It doesn't, because I
Good.
realize that, people paint a broad brush of police officers. When one incident
True.
happens, all of us, right? So I
Yeah.
can't do the same thing to mankind and humankind. I've realized that most people are genuinely good people, and then that's that small percent, right, that wreak and cause havoc on our cities. But um yeah, it- I think that you have to be in the right mindset and have to have those avenues to be able to um, kind of flip your view, right?
Right.
Yeah, so I mean,
Yeah.
it's hard at first, but
It takes practice, I'm sure. Consistent
yes,
practice.
you have to be intentional about
Yeah.
stuff.
And I really do think this is definitely one of those areas where being someone of faith, it like gives you these extra resources.
Yeah,
I really believe that.
I agree. I
Yeah.
agree. Yep, the things that I listen to, the things that I read,
Yep.
people that I talk to, it's all important. And
Yeah.
to bring me back down to, okay, God is still in control,
Right.
right? All you can do is pray. In some situations, that's all you can do, and that's what I'm gonna do,
Yep.
right? So,
Makes a difference. Last question. I looked on the police website and I saw that y'all have several community outreach programs. And I'm just curious, are those pretty well attended? Do people seem to enjoy them and benefit from them? I'm just kind of wondering how those go over in Waco.
oh my God, I love so we have a Citizens Police Academy that we hold twice a year, and we averaged about 20 to 25 students, which is
Oh,
really perfect.
yeah.
Because of the things that they do, they're exposed during the 12-week period to many things that happen internally inside the police department, our K-9 division, our SWAT team, our dispatchers, our investigators, our narcotics guys. And so it's just crime scene units. It's just easy to manage a group that size. And so they are well attended and they're a lot of fun. But what I really like most about the program is that once people leave that program, they become advocates for the police
Yes.
department. Right? When
Yes.
people are having these conversations in beauty shops, barbershops, or wherever they are, and misinformation is out there, then they can step in about, wait a minute,
Yeah.
I did Citizen Police Academy, I know their policy on this, and most police officers are not like, or whatever, right? And so then we have a Citizens Police Academy Alumni Association, and that Alumni Association, they support us in everything we do, our back to school bash, trunk or treat, anything that we're doing to engage the community. They are those extra people standing out front in those red shirts, showing you where to go, registering you, and it's just been phenomenal. And they are well attended. Our Junior Police Academy, our Explorers program, getting our kids involved.
I love that.
It's been incredible, and again, and I love going down, making sure that I meet them first days of class and engage with them and letting them know that I'm accessible, ask questions of me or whatever they need to do.
Fun.
So yeah.
Cool. Very cool. That's all the questions that I have for you. I'm going to do a little bit of wrap up. You're welcome to stay to the end, but if you need to leave now, that is fine, because I know that you are really busy. So
So,
thank you so much for being here. This was a great interview. This was so
well,
much,
thank you, and thank you for having me.
and I will email you a link when this interview goes live.
Okay,
All
takes
right.
care. Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye bye.
Chief. Bye. Okay, so for everybody else who is still here, want to give some fun facts about Waco. They are related to police, since I just did the interview with Chief Victorian. Texas has more than 73,000 sworn peace officers. That's roughly one for every 330 people. That's fairly high. And there are a lot of different groups in Texas that have their own peace officers. And I thought one that was so funny is the State Board of Dental Examiners. My late husband was a dentist. I don't know why they would need their own peace officers, but if they need them, they've got them. And then, according to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, Texas employs the second highest number of police officers last year, 980,000, and New York State was they were closely behind them. I mean, we beat out New York State, but we're pretty big. So that is it for this episode. And I just want to tell you, along with doing this podcast and Waco Hypnosis Center, I'm available for public speaking. If you would like to find out more about that, you can contact me through my website, www.drmelissarich.com, or you can email me at info@drmelissarich.com. And y'all, if you enjoyed this episode, I really would love for you to do one or more of the following. Write me a review, a really good one. That would be great. Share the episode or follow the podcast. Thank you all so much. I hope that this was helpful to you all, and see you back next week. Bye, everyone.